Among history's most remarkable figures, two women stand whose strength and legacy still echo across centuries: Infanta Maria Theresa of Portugal and Maria Theresa of Naples and Sicily. Each carved her legacy within the heart of empires, navigating duty, loss, and dynastic expectation in eras shaped by change and war. Let us begin with the first, Infanta Maria Theresa of Portugal. Infanta Maria Theresa of Portugal was born on the 24th of August in the year 1855 at Lowenstein Castle in Kleinhubach, in the Kingdom of Bavaria. How did this Portuguese princess, born in German exile, rise to hold influence in the grand courts of Austria? What strength carried her through a troubled marriage, 2 world wars, and the downfall of empires? And why does her quiet legacy still echo through Habsburg history, though her name remains mostly forgotten? Please watch my full video until the end, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Please make sure to share it with your friends. Thank you. Now, let us dive into the full story. Maria Theresa was the second daughter of Miguel I of Portugal and Princess Adelaide of Lowenstein. Her father had once ruled Portugal but was exiled in 1834 after being overthrown by his niece, Queen Maria II. By the time Maria Theresa was born, the family had settled in Bavaria, far from Lisbon's royal court. Though exiled, they preserved royal customs and a deep attachment to their heritage, one that would shape Maria Theresa's view of dynastic duty. Raised among nobility, fluent in courtly languages, and educated in the traditions of both Portuguese and German aristocracy, she matured with a deep awareness of her lineage and the sacrifices it entailed. These early years laid the foundation for her future role within the Austro-Hungarian world, not as a queen or empress, but as a powerful presence behind the curtain of imperial life. Maria Theresa's early years in Bavaria were shaped by both royal pride and political exile. Though her father, Miguel I, had lost the Portuguese throne decades before, he raised his children with unwavering belief in the legitimacy of his claim. At Kleinhubach, the exiled Braganza court maintained the rhythms of nobility, formal education, religious devotion, and a strong emphasis on dynastic identity. Maria Theresa grew up surrounded by siblings who shared her father's hope of eventual restoration. Yet in the broader political landscape, the Braganzas were viewed as a lost cause, symbols of a royal line overthrown by liberal forces. This duality gave her a unique perspective. She was both a princess and an outsider, heir to a fallen crown, yet educated to live with dignity in a world that no longer bowed to her name. Her mother, Princess Adelaide of Lowenstein, brought German traditions into their home, fostering a love of language, music, and ceremonial discipline. Maria Theresa learned to navigate the subtleties of court life, skills that would serve her well in future alliances. She also inherited the strong Catholic faith that ran deep in both her Portuguese and German ancestry, shaping her values and decisions throughout her life. Though raised far from Lisbon, Maria Theresa never forgot where she came from. Her upbringing instilled in her a sense of purpose, an understanding that royalty was not just about birth, but about behavior, sacrifice, and strength. Especially for a woman destined to marry into one of Europe's most powerful houses. In the summer of 1873, Maria Theresa's path took a defining turn. She was chosen to marry Archduke Karl Ludwig of Austria, the younger brother of Emperor Franz Joseph of Austria and Emperor Maximilian of Mexico. The marriage was orchestrated not just as a personal union, but as a strategic move linking the exiled Portuguese Braganzas with the ruling Habsburg dynasty. For Maria Theresa, raised with a sense of dynastic responsibility, This alliance was both an honor and a duty. The wedding took place at Kleinhubach, in the very castle where she had been born. Despite its celebratory nature, the marriage carried heavy expectations. Karl Ludwig had already been widowed twice and brought several children from his previous unions, including the young Franz Ferdinand, who would later change the course of European history. Maria Theresa entered this union with grace and dignity, admired across European courts for her beauty and bearing. But behind the ceremonial splendor lay uncertainty. She was marrying into a rigid and complex imperial family, stepping into the shadow of a powerful brother-in-law and navigating a household still mourning past losses. Though she was younger than her husband by over 20 years, Maria Theresa carried herself with poise, prepared to serve the Habsburg legacy. This marriage marked her formal entry into the world of Austro-Hungarian politics and tradition. It also placed her at the center of an imperial family destined to experience both its golden age and eventual downfall. A future Maria Theresa could never have fully imagined, but one she would help shape in quiet, lasting ways. Becoming the third wife of Archduke Karl Ludwig meant that Maria Theresa also became stepmother to a brood of children from his previous marriages. Chief among them was Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir presumptive to the Austro-Hungarian throne. Others included Archduke Otto Franz, Archduke Ferdinand Karl, and Archduchess Marguerite Sophie. Each child carried their own grief, loyalties, and expectations, and Maria Theresa was expected to guide them with both restraint and affection. It was not an easy role. She was barely 18 when she entered the Habsburg court, while her stepchildren were already struggling under the weight of imperial tradition and fractured family history. But Maria Theresa showed a rare blend of gentleness and steel. She respected the memory of their mother, Maria Annunziata, while quietly creating a space for herself as a calm and reliable presence in their lives. While formal affection may have been limited in the court's rigid environment, Maria Theresa earned the trust of her stepchildren over time. Her genuine concern for their well-being, especially Franz Ferdinand, set her apart. She treated them not just as political heirs, but as individuals grappling with identity, duty, and personal loss. Inside the ornate halls of Vienna's Hofburg Palace, she was never the central figure, but she was always watching, listening, guiding. Her influence within the family grew gradually, built on quiet support rather than authority. And in the years to come, this bond, especially with Franz Ferdinand, would lead to some of the most defining choices of her life. Behind the gilded doors of her imperial marriage, Maria Theresa endured a private sorrow few ever suspected. Though her wedding to Archduke Karl Ludwig had elevated her to one of Europe's grandest courts, the reality of their relationship was far from harmonious. The Archduke, though respected in public, was known in private to be harsh and domineering. He belittled and tormented Maria Theresa, a dynamic that cast a long shadow over their household. Yet she never allowed bitterness to define her. Maria Theresa responded to her husband's cruelty not with confrontation, but with dignity. Her quiet endurance earned her respect among courtiers and foreign dignitaries alike. In an era when women had few avenues for resistance, she found strength in restraint, preserving her own sense of identity while fulfilling every demand placed upon her. Despite the coldness of her marriage, she fulfilled her dynastic role by giving birth to two daughters, Archduchess Maria Annunziata in 1876 and Archduchess Elizabeth Amalie in 1878. Though her personal happiness was limited, Maria Theresa poured her energy into her children, ensuring they were raised with care, education, and emotional warmth, qualities she herself had rarely received from her husband. This period of her life became a testament to her inner fortitude. While many around her saw only the titles and silks, Maria Theresa was quietly crafting a legacy rooted not in power or ambition, but in grace under pressure. It was this unwavering strength that would later make her one of the most trusted and stabilizing figures at the Habsburg court. In January of 1889, a devastating blow struck the Austrian monarchy. Crown Prince Rudolf, only son of Emperor Franz Joseph and Empress Elizabeth, was found dead in a tragic murder-suicide at Mayerling. The court was thrown into shock and mourning, and Empress Elizabeth, shattered by grief, withdrew almost entirely from public life. Into this vacuum stepped Maria Theresa. Though never officially designated, Maria Theresa began fulfilling many of the ceremonial duties once held by the Empress. Her calm presence, unshaken composure, and natural dignity made her the ideal surrogate at imperial events, audiences, and court rituals. For nearly a decade, she stood beside the emperor during official functions, acting not only as a figure of grace, but also of continuity in a court desperate for stability. This unexpected rise in court influence marked a turning point in her life. No longer confined to the quiet role of consort or stepmother, she was now at the center of the Habsburg ceremonial world. Her ability to navigate tradition, diplomacy, and delicate emotions without overstepping her place gained her deep respect among courtiers and foreign ambassadors alike. Even the emperor himself seemed to rely on her composed presence. She became a quiet pillar of the court, upholding its rituals in a time of sorrow. Yet Maria Theresa never sought glory. She served because it was needed. And in doing so, she subtly reshaped her image from a sidelined wife to one of the monarchy's most respected and indispensable women. With Empress Elizabeth retreating into isolation after the Mayerling tragedy, the need for a steady, present female figure at the heart of the monarchy grew urgent. Maria Theresa, already admired for her quiet poise, naturally stepped forward. Though she held no official title beyond Archduchess, her presence at the Hofburg Palace became nearly as influential as that of an empress. She represented the imperial family at state events, presided over court ceremonies, and received foreign dignitaries with unwavering grace. Dressed in modest but elegant attire, she never overshadowed the emperor, but instead reinforced the court's image of tradition and continuity. Her sense of decorum and gentle authority earned her admiration in Vienna and beyond. More than just a ceremonial stand-in, Maria Theresa understood the emotional undercurrents running through the empire. She offered quiet support to the emperor, managed the intricate etiquette of court life, and maintained the dignity of the monarchy during turbulent times. Even her detractors acknowledged that she had restored a sense of calm and respect to a court still shaken by grief and scandal. Her role was unofficial, but her impact was real. She acted as a stabilizing figure, not by demanding attention, but by embodying the restraint and loyalty that were once hallmarks of imperial life. Maria Theresa's ability to navigate the delicate balance between public duty and private sorrow made her indispensable. And though history rarely remembers her as a ruler, the court she helped preserve owed much to her quiet leadership. In May of 1896, Archduke Karl Ludwig died, leaving Maria Theresa a widow at the age of 40. After over 2 decades of enduring his cold and domineering presence, his death brought both sorrow and unexpected freedom. According to court protocol, she was required to withdraw from her official duties and enter a period of mourning. But even in retirement, Maria Theresa remained a respected figure in Austrian society. She divided her time between Vienna during the winter months and the quiet summer retreat of Reichstadt Castle in Bohemia. Far from the rigid formality of court life, these years allowed her moments of peace, reflection, and autonomy. Yet her influence had not vanished. She still received guests, offered advice to members of the imperial family, and maintained close ties with her stepchildren and daughters. It was during this period that whispers began to circulate, rumors that Maria Theresa might remarry. The name most often mentioned was Count Ladislaus Cavriani, her longtime household steward. The idea of a widowed archduchess marrying beneath her rank caused quiet ripples through Viennese high society. But no scandal emerged. Her reputation was so firmly rooted in grace and restraint that even the court gossips dared not speak too loudly. In the end, the rumors proved unfounded. Maria Theresa remained single, choosing instead to devote herself to family, faith, and quiet service. Her widowhood was not defined by loss, but by a quiet reassertion of self, a chapter in which she finally lived on her own terms, far from the shadow of her difficult marriage. Among Maria Theresa's most defining acts during her widowhood was her courageous support of a love the imperial family tried to suppress. Her stepson, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, had fallen deeply in love with Countess Sophie Chotek, a noblewoman of fine heritage but not of royal blood. The Habsburg court, fiercely protective of dynastic purity, forbade the match. Even Emperor Franz Joseph stood firmly against it. But Maria Theresa saw something others would not: the depth of Franz Ferdinand's devotion and Sophie's quiet dignity. At great personal risk, she defied tradition. She traveled to a convent in Prague, where Sophie had been sent, and brought her back into her own household. This simple act was bold and deliberate. Maria Theresa didn't just offer shelter, she offered legitimacy. She spoke on Sophie's behalf to the emperor and urged him to reconsider. When permission for a morganatic marriage was finally granted, it was Maria Theresa who arranged every detail of the wedding. She insisted it be held in her private chapel, surrounded by those who genuinely supported the couple. Through this act of compassion and principle, Maria Theresa forged an unbreakable bond with Franz Ferdinand and Sophie. Her quiet defiance of court expectations became a defining moment in her legacy. She had chosen love over politics, sincerity over protocol, and in doing so, stood on the right side of history. It was a decision that would deepen her connection with Franz Ferdinand until the very end, and one that showed her rare ability to combine loyalty with quiet rebellion when it mattered most. On the 28th of June in the year 1914, a tragedy unfolded in Sarajevo that would shake the world and haunt Maria Theresa forever. Her beloved stepson Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie were assassinated by a young nationalist while traveling through Bosnia. The couple died side by side, their deaths setting off a chain reaction that would ignite the First World War. For Maria Theresa, the news was both personal and political. It was she who broke the news to the couple's 3 young children, Sophie, Maximilian, and Ernst. Her heart broke not just for the loss of 2 people she had defended and loved, but for the innocent lives left behind. In the days following the assassination, Maria Theresa became their anchor, offering comfort when the empire itself seemed to be crumbling. But her influence went beyond grief. When the children's future became uncertain, she stepped forward again. Maria Theresa approached Emperor Franz Joseph directly, declaring that if he would not provide a yearly income for the orphan children, she would relinquish her own widow's allowance in their favor. Her firm stand shamed the court into action, securing financial stability for the grieving family. In a time of shock and shifting power, Maria Theresa proved once more that her strength lay in steadfast loyalty. She did not shrink from sorrow or scandal. Instead, she stood tall, preserving the dignity and security of those who had once called her mother. It was perhaps her most human moment, a blend of heartbreak, courage, and unwavering love. As the First World War dragged on, the Austro-Hungarian Empire began to unravel. In November of 1916, Emperor Franz Joseph died, ending one of the longest reigns in European history. His successor was Archduke Charles, the son of Maria Theresa's stepson Otto Franz and nephew of Franz Ferdinand. Young and idealistic, Charles inherited an empire on the brink of collapse. Maria Theresa, now in her 60s, watched these events unfold with a quiet but unshakable sense of loyalty. When Charles and his wife Zita ascended the throne, she offered her support without hesitation. Though no longer an active member of the court, her guidance was respected, and her legacy still lingered within the Habsburg's walls. But within 2 years, the monarchy itself crumbled. In November of 1918, as defeat loomed at the end of the war, Charles was forced to relinquish power. Though he never formally abdicated, the empire was gone. In the chaos that followed, Maria Theresa made a remarkable decision. She joined Charles and Zita in exile. She accompanied them on their journey to Madeira, far from the palaces and traditions of Vienna. It was an act of solidarity, not obligation, a final gesture of devotion to a royal house she had served for nearly 5 decades. When others faded into quiet retirement or turned bitter, Maria Theresa chose loyalty. Her presence in exile offered more than comfort. It reminded the fallen imperial family, and perhaps the world, that even in the twilight of empires, grace and duty could still endure. In the late 1920s, long after the empire had vanished, Maria Theresa faced an unexpected scandal, not of politics, but of jewels. Among her most prized possessions was the Napoleon diamond necklace, a legendary piece of royal jewelry inherited through her husband's family. By 1929, facing declining finances in post-imperial Vienna, she decided to sell it. She entrusted the task to 2 agents, expecting a discreet and honest transaction in the United States. But instead of a smooth sale, the event spiraled into deception. The necklace was sold for $60,000, a fraction of its worth, and nearly 90% of the proceeds were claimed as expenses by her great-nephew, Archduke Leopold of Austria, Prince of Tuscany, who had inserted himself into the arrangement. Maria Theresa, humiliated and furious, took the matter to court. What followed was a rare moment where a former archduchess publicly sought justice in a foreign land. The American courts ruled in her favor, the necklace was recovered, the agents fled, and her great-nephew was imprisoned. Though she had endured court intrigue and war, it was this modern betrayal within her own extended family that revealed her continuing resilience. She refused to be swindled or shamed, even in old age. The scandal, while deeply troubling, did not define her. Instead, it became another example of her strength, a royal woman who, stripped of title and throne, still carried the clarity and courage to defend what was rightfully hers, even across oceans and generations. After her return from exile, Maria Theresa quietly settled once more in Vienna, a city transformed by war, revolution, and loss. The imperial palaces were no longer symbols of power, but relics of a vanished world. Yet for Maria Theresa, Vienna remained home. She chose not to flee to distant estates or live out her days in bitter reflection. Instead, she embraced the rhythm of ordinary life with the same dignity that had defined her youth. No longer surrounded by servants or the ceremonial duties of court, she lived modestly but with purpose. Friends and former courtiers still visited her, drawn to her wisdom, warmth, and the quiet power of her presence. She remained deeply engaged in family matters, offering guidance to her daughters, and keeping correspondence with members of the Habsburg circle scattered across Europe. Though the world around her had changed beyond recognition, monarchies fallen, borders redrawn, and ideologies clashing, Maria Theresa held firmly to the values of loyalty, faith, and endurance. Her memory stretched across generations, from the days of Emperor Franz Joseph to the rise of new regimes. When the Second World War engulfed Austria, she remained in the city she had once served. By then, in her late 80s, she witnessed the final unraveling of the old world, yet her spirit never dimmed. Maria Theresa became a living echo of a lost empire, a figure of continuity amid chaos. Her final years were not marked by grandeur, but by the quiet courage of survival and grace without a throne. Though Maria Theresa never held a throne of her own, her influence rippled through the Habsburg dynasty in subtle and lasting ways. As stepmother to Archduke Franz Ferdinand and protector of his children, she shaped the lives of those whose names would appear in the final chapters of Austria's imperial history. As mother to Archduchess Maria Annunziata and Archduchess Elizabeth Amalie, she nurtured a new generation of women who carried her values of dignity, discipline, and quiet strength into the modern world. Her daughter Maria Annunziata chose a religious life, serving as abbess of the Theresa convent in Prague, where she remained unmarried but deeply respected. Her younger daughter, Elizabeth Amalie, married into the ruling house of Liechtenstein, bridging two dynasties and ensuring that Maria Theresa's lineage would extend into another royal legacy. Both daughters lived into the mid-20th century, proof of the enduring strength passed on by their mother. More broadly, Maria Theresa left behind a model of leadership through presence rather than power. She guided with empathy, earned loyalty through trust, and helped hold a fading empire together by embodying its best virtues. In court circles, her name evoked integrity and grace. Among historians, she remains an overlooked architect of emotional stability during Austria's most turbulent decades. Her story is not one of conquest or command, but of constancy. She did not rule, but she mattered. And in a world so often reshaped by noise and conflict, Maria Theresa's legacy is one of quiet endurance, a legacy that still lingers in the memory of an empire that no longer exists. Maria Theresa of Portugal's life spanned nearly 9 decades. Years filled with imperial splendor, personal sorrow, historic upheaval, and private strength. Born into exile and raised in the traditions of a lost throne, she married into the heart of the Habsburg Empire, only to find herself facing a marriage marked by pain and control. Yet through every chapter, she responded not with rebellion or retreat, but with quiet resilience. She became a mother, a stepmother, a court figure, a defender of love, and an unwavering source of comfort during tragedy. While others sought crowns or chased glory, Maria Theresa held to something deeper, a belief in duty, compassion, and quiet influence. When asked to stand in for an absent empress, she did so with grace. When Franz Ferdinand defied dynastic rules, she stood by him. When his children were left orphaned, she ensured their protection. In her final years, she bore witness to the end of the empire she had helped support, and to the world wars that followed its collapse. And yet, she never stopped being who she was, a woman of strength and subtle power, loyal to her values and unshaken by the changing tides of history. Maria Theresa died on the 12th of February in the year 1944 in Vienna at the age of 88. She was buried in the imperial crypt, not far from those she had served and loved. Her story, though often left in the background, remains a testament to the strength of a woman who shaped history not by force, but by presence. Let us now turn to another remarkable figure of royal descent. Maria Theresa of Naples and Sicily was born on the 6th of June in the year 1772 at the royal palace in Naples, in the Kingdom of Naples. How did this bright and passionate princess become the last Holy Roman Empress and the first Empress of Austria? What influence did she wield behind palace walls? And how did her spirited nature both charm and disrupt the rigid court of Vienna? Could her legacy survive a life cut short by tragedy and politics? From birth, Maria Theresa was destined for prominence. She was the eldest daughter of Ferdinand I of the two Sicilies and Maria Carolina of Austria, and named in honor of her legendary maternal grandmother, Empress Maria Theresa of Austria. Raised in a palace where politics and power intertwined with family duty, she received an elite education in languages, music, theology, and the arts. Her mother, a dominant force in Neapolitan politics, shaped Maria Theresa's early worldview, encouraging strength, pride, and alliance with Habsburg ideals. As a child, she was surrounded by opulence, diplomacy, and expectations. With blonde hair and striking blue eyes, Maria Theresa quickly became a favorite at court, known for her vivacity and confidence. But even in youth, her future was being quietly decided. Dynastic marriages were a currency of power, and the House of Habsburg soon came calling. At just 18 years old, she would be sent north to Vienna to marry her double first cousin, Archduke Francis, a union that would place her at the very center of European empire. Maria Theresa's early years in Naples were shaped by grandeur, intellect, and the powerful presence of her mother, Queen Maria Carolina. As the eldest of many siblings, she was born into a court where the Bourbon and Habsburg traditions met, and where her every step was carefully observed. Her mother, herself a daughter of Empress Maria Theresa of Austria, ruled the Neapolitan court with fierce intelligence and political ambition. From the beginning, Maria Theresa was her favorite. Educated by select tutors, the young princess studied French, Latin, geography, theology, music, dance, and court etiquette. But it was through her mother's example that she learned the true nature of queenship, not merely ceremonial but strategic. Maria Carolina often took her daughter to council meetings and diplomatic receptions, allowing her to observe politics firsthand. These early lessons stayed with her for life. Within the walls of the royal palace, Maria Theresa was known for her spirited nature. She loved to perform, sing, and organize private plays among her siblings and ladies in waiting. But beneath the sparkle of childhood, a destiny was forming. As a royal daughter, she was expected to marry well, to strengthen alliances, not follow affection. Her bond with her mother was central. Maria Carolina nurtured her daughter's confidence while shaping her sense of duty. She taught Maria Theresa how to stand firm, how to hold her head high in court, and how to use charm as both shield and tool. These were lessons the young princess would carry with her into the austere world of the Viennese court. The year 1790 marked a turning point in Maria Theresa's life. At just 18 years old, she was selected to marry Archduke Francis of Austria, her double first cousin and future Holy Roman Emperor. The decision was not hers to make. As with many royal daughters, her marriage was a matter of dynastic strategy, carefully negotiated between courts in Naples and Vienna to strengthen the Habsburg-Bourbon alliance. Initially, Maria Theresa and her sister Louisa were both considered for different Habsburg unions. In the end, Louisa was sent to Tuscany, while Maria Theresa was chosen to wed the heir of the empire. On the 15th of September, 1790, she was married to Francis in a grand ceremony. She left behind the lively court of Naples and entered the more rigid and somber world of Vienna. The contrast between them was striking. Maria Theresa was vivacious, passionate, and sociable, fond of dancing, conversation, and music. Francis, in contrast, was melancholic and reserved, shaped by a sense of duty and emotional restraint. but to the surprise of many, their marriage worked. Though different in temperament, they formed a relationship built on mutual respect and understanding. For Maria Theresa, marriage was not merely a ceremonial role. It was an entrance into a new life of responsibility, influence, and transition. As she adapted to her new surroundings, she brought with her the warmth of Naples, but also a determination to thrive in the cold halls of the empire. Her new journey had begun, and with it, the shaping of a legacy. Just 2 years after her marriage, Maria Theresa's world changed again. In July of 1792, Archduke Francis ascended the throne as Holy Roman Emperor, making her the last Holy Roman Empress. Though barely 20 years old, she was now consort to the most powerful monarch in the empire, and the first lady of one of Europe's most ancient traditions. Maria Theresa embraced her new role with elegance and pride. The coronation took place in Prague in August of 1793, and she dazzled onlookers with her beauty, poise, and majestic bearing. While the title of Empress carried no formal political power, it demanded immense social presence and ceremonial discipline, responsibilities she performed with dedication. In Vienna, her influence grew subtly. She offered counsel to her husband and often participated in discussions on court appointments and matters of etiquette. Behind closed doors, she became a trusted advisor, especially on matters relating to family, court alliances, and even the empire's foreign stance. Known for her conservative views, she shared her husband's suspicion of revolutionary France and supported his anti-Napoleonic policies. Her popularity among the people varied. Some admired her charm and generosity, while others found her emotional intensity and occasional jealousy troubling. Yet no one doubted her commitment to the crown. Maria Theresa carried the weight of empire not with military power or political edicts, but through charisma, duty, and a deep belief in monarchy. She had stepped into a role shaped by centuries, and would leave her mark before the empire itself came to an end. The union between Maria Theresa and Emperor Francis was often seen as a marriage of opposites, and yet one of surprising stability. Where Francis was quiet, austere, and deeply reserved, Maria Theresa was animated, expressive, and socially inclined. While he sought peace in solitude and duty, she found joy in court life, music, and the vibrant swirl of Viennese society. Despite their differences, they built a partnership rooted in mutual respect and loyalty. Observers noted their contrasting personalities. Francis was known for his melancholic nature and Spartan preferences. He had little taste for ceremony beyond what duty required. Maria Theresa, by contrast, brought vitality to the court. She embraced public engagements, enjoyed carnival festivities, and even danced while heavily pregnant, a practice that raised eyebrows but also earned admiration for her liveliness and spirit. Their personal relationship, though lacking in passion by some accounts, was solid. They understood one another's boundaries. Maria Theresa, though often accused of jealousy and possessiveness, remained committed to her husband's image and well-being. In turn, Francis valued her intelligence, respected her advice, and relied on her to manage aspects of family life and ceremonial duty that he found burdensome. Through the complexities of their marriage, Maria Theresa carved out space to be both empress and woman, present in the public eye, yet deeply engaged behind closed doors. It was not a union of romance or idealism, but of endurance and understanding. And in the world of dynastic marriage, that quiet harmony was more than most could hope for. At the heart of the Viennese court, Maria Theresa became a commanding presence, admired for her beauty, charm, and love of culture. Her arrival brought renewed energy to the imperial household, and she quickly embraced the grandeur and rituals of court life. She particularly loved music and dancing, and her fondness for the newly fashionable waltz added flair to palace celebrations. Carnival balls, masquerades, and theatrical performances became staples of her calendar. Even during pregnancy, she attended with enthusiasm, delighting those around her with her vivacious spirit. She often organized private evenings with her closest companions, where music, comedy, and dramatic recitations filled the rooms with laughter and applause. The Empress, it seemed, was not only royal, she was also a performer at heart. But behind this glittering exterior, court gossip whispered darker tales. Some claimed she was fiercely jealous, unwilling to share her husband's attention even in public. Visitors noted how rarely Emperor Francis appeared at social functions, suggesting that Maria Theresa kept him isolated. The Swedish noblewoman Hedvig Elizabeth Charlotte wrote in her diary that Maria Theresa's intensity and possessiveness earned her quiet disapproval among courtiers. Still, others defended her. They spoke of her generosity, her intelligence, and her ability to uplift those in her inner circle. To many, she was a queen who knew how to live, a woman unafraid to blend imperial tradition with personal flair. Whether admired or criticized, Maria Theresa made court life her stage, and in doing so, left a vivid impression on all who entered her orbit. Though Maria Theresa held no formal political office, her influence behind the throne was well known. As Empress, she became a trusted confidante to Emperor Francis, and her opinions often shaped decisions made in the imperial court. While she generally avoided public displays of authority, those close to the monarchy understood that her voice carried weight, especially in matters of ideology and diplomacy. Maria Theresa was a staunch conservative. Raised in a household deeply loyal to monarchical order, she viewed the rise of revolutionary France with alarm. As the Napoleonic Wars escalated, she became a fierce opponent of French influence and expansion. She encouraged her husband to resist compromise and hold firm to the values of dynastic rule, even when such stances made Austria vulnerable. Her disdain for Napoleon was personal as well as political. When her daughter Marie-Louise was later married to the French emperor in a controversial peace effort, Maria Theresa had already passed away, but many believed she would have opposed the match with all her strength. In her lifetime, she had been a vocal critic of any alliance that threatened the Habsburg tradition. Within the palace, she also took sides in internal politics. Her role in the dismissal of several high-ranking officials, including Johann von Schleusnig and Count Colordo, was widely suspected if not officially acknowledged. Though she operated through suggestion rather than decree, her reach extended far. In a time of shifting alliances and unstable loyalties, Maria Theresa remained unwavering. She was not merely a consort. She was a guardian of empire, voice of resistance, and a pillar of Habsburg conservatism. In addition to being Holy Roman Empress, Maria Theresa also held the titles of Queen Consort of Hungary and Bohemia, lands central to the Habsburg monarchy. When Francis ascended these thrones in the spring of 1792, she formally became consort in regions steeped in history, conflict, and diverse cultural identity. Though symbolic in nature, these titles carried weight in shaping her public image across the empire. Her coronation as Queen of Bohemia took place in Prague on the 11th of August, 1793. It was a lavish affair, blending local tradition with imperial ceremony. Maria Theresa stood proudly beside her husband, representing continuity in a realm still recovering from decades of reform and foreign pressure. Her presence helped bridge the imperial center in Vienna with outlying territories, and her charisma often softened political tensions. In Hungary, where monarchs had long relied on noble support and military loyalty, Maria Theresa was seen less often but remained respected. She was aware of the cultural and religious complexities in the region and worked to maintain respectful ties through charitable works and carefully curated royal appearances. Despite her youth, she understood that her role as queen extended beyond palaces and pageantry. It required connection, a visible, living symbol of unity for peoples often divided by history and rebellion. Though the real reins of power lay with the emperor and his ministers, Maria Theresa used her influence to support imperial cohesion, encourage loyalty, and uphold tradition. Through ceremony and presence, she carried centuries of Habsburg symbolism, a living bridge between crown and country. Maria Theresa's legacy was not only written through titles and courts, but through the remarkable children she brought into the world. Over the course of 17 years, she gave birth to 12 children, a lineage that would shape the royal map of Europe for generations. Her children included emperors, queens, and consorts whose destinies touched France, Brazil, Portugal, and beyond. Her firstborn, Marie-Louise, became Empress of the French through her controversial marriage to Napoleon Bonaparte. It was a union arranged after Maria Theresa's death, but it carried echoes of the mother's diplomacy and lineage. Another daughter, Maria Leopoldina, became Empress of Brazil and later Queen of Portugal, remembered in South American history as a beloved and visionary figure. Among her sons, Ferdinand I would rise to become Emperor of Austria, while Franz Karl, her youngest, would father Emperor Franz Joseph I of Austria and Emperor Maximilian of Mexico. Through them, Maria Theresa became the grandmother of two powerful rulers whose reigns defined the mid-19th century. Yet motherhood for Maria Theresa was not without pain. Several of her children died in infancy, and others struggled with health issues. Still, she remained deeply involved in their lives, taking an active role in their education and upbringing. She passed on her sense of duty, Catholic faith, and dynastic pride. Through her children, Maria Theresa extended her influence across continents and centuries. She was not only a royal consort, she was a dynastic matriarch, shaping the future of empires from within the nursery as much as the throne room. Despite her grace and ceremonial devotion, Maria Theresa's life at court was not without controversy. Her passionate temperament and deep involvement in both family and imperial affairs sometimes drew disapproval, even among those closest to her. Though beloved by some, others saw her as overly controlling, a woman who blurred the lines between personal influence and political interference. One of the most notable criticisms came from the Swedish noblewoman Hedvig Elizabeth Charlotte, whose detailed diaries provide rare insights into court life. During her visit to Vienna in the late 1790s, she described the Empress as overly jealous and excessively attached to Emperor Francis. Gossip swirled that Maria Theresa refused to allow her husband to attend social gatherings without her, and some even claimed that she demanded his constant presence out of personal insecurity. Within the court, her close friendships with a small circle of ladies also raised suspicion. She was accused of indulging in trivial entertainments, amateur theatricals, late-night singing, and exclusive gatherings, rather than engaging more broadly with the wider noble class. Some criticized her for ignoring the serious expectations of her role, while others felt her intensity alienated potential allies. Her involvement in the dismissal of key officials only added to the murmurs. Though never proven, she was suspected of engineering the removal of prominent advisors who disagreed with her views or proximity to power. Still, Maria Theresa remained undeterred. She knew who she was, and in a court built on appearances, Her authenticity, however divisive, left a lasting mark. Beyond politics and protocol, Maria Theresa's love for the arts became one of her most enduring legacies. In the rich cultural world of Vienna, she stood not only as an empress, but as a true patron of music and creativity. Her court supported composers, musicians, and performers, and her enthusiasm helped shape the artistic vibrancy of the Habsburg capital at the turn of the 19th century. She commissioned numerous compositions for both public celebrations and private enjoyment. One of her most notable commissions was the Te Deum by Joseph Haydn, created specifically at her request. The sacred and celebratory work reflected her deep Catholic faith and her understanding of music as a bridge between devotion and splendor. Maria Theresa's musical tastes extended beyond grand chorales. She supported composers like Paul Wranitzky and Joseph Leopold Eibler, favoring works that balanced elegance with emotional resonance. At her gatherings, she often encouraged informal performances and enjoyed singing with her companions, an empress not above joining the chorus herself. Art, for Maria Theresa, was not just decoration. It was a living part of imperial identity, a way to bring beauty and unity into an empire so often marked by division and tension. Through her patronage, she elevated Viennese culture and preserved the traditions of musical excellence that the Habsburgs had long championed. Though her reign was short, her support of the arts echoed long after her death. In Vienna's concert halls and chapels, the sounds she nurtured continued to shape a legacy that was not merely imperial, but human and profoundly enduring. In the winter of 1806, signs of illness began to shadow Maria Theresa's radiant presence. Though still relatively young, the Empress's 12th pregnancy came with complications that doctors could not easily explain. She had always been strong during her earlier pregnancies, but this time was different. Fatigue set in quickly, and her breathing grew labored, early symptoms of what would soon be diagnosed as tuberculous pleurisy. Despite her condition, Maria Theresa remained active at court, determined not to let illness define her. But as the weeks passed, her health declined rapidly. The imperial physician, Andreas Joseph von Stift, turned to the common treatment of the time, bloodletting, in hopes of alleviating her suffering. It brought little relief. On the 6th of April 1807, she went into premature labor. The child, a daughter named Amalie Theresa, lived only 3 days. The Empress, too weak to recover, passed away 1 week later on the 13th of April. She was only 34 years old. Her death sent shockwaves through the empire. Francis was inconsolable, reportedly having to be pulled from her body by attendants. He fled Vienna, unable to bear the funeral, taking their 2 eldest children with him to Buda. Maria Theresa's final days were marked not by ceremony, but by fragility, a reminder that even the most powerful figures were not immune to loss. Her early death ended a chapter that still held promise, leaving behind a grieving court and a void that no successor could easily fill. The sudden death of Maria Theresa on the 13th of April, 1807, plunged the Austrian Empire into mourning. At just 34 years old, she had been a vibrant and commanding figure at court, and her passing left a profound silence in the grand halls of the Hofburg Palace. Though she had been empress for only 15 years, her influence had been unmistakable. Emperor Francis, devastated by her loss, fled Vienna with their 2 eldest children, unable to endure the pain of her funeral. According to accounts, he had to be forcibly removed from her side. The Empress, once the heart of the imperial household, now lay still, her body prepared for one of the most solemn rites in Habsburg tradition, the triple burial. In keeping with dynastic custom, Maria Theresa's body was divided among 3 sacred sites. Her remains were interred in the imperial crypt in Vienna, her heart placed in the Herzgraft heart crypt, and her entrails in the ducal crypt. This rare, separate burial was reserved for only 41 individuals in Habsburg history, a mark of her exceptional status. Vienna mourned deeply. Black drapes covered palatial windows, and requiem masses filled the city's churches. Nobles and commoners alike remembered her beauty, her music, her spirited presence. Even critics softened their tone, recognizing the loss of a woman who had carried the weight of empire with elegance. Her death closed an era, not just for Francis, but for the empire itself. And though a new empress would eventually take her place, Maria Theresa's memory remained etched in the marble, music, and heart of imperial Vienna. Maria Theresa's final resting places reflect one of the most distinctive and solemn traditions of the Habsburg dynasty, the triple burial. Upon her death in April of 1807, her remains were divided and interred across 3 sacred sites in Vienna: the imperial crypt, the Herzgraft heart crypt, and the ducal crypt. This practice, reserved for only a select few, symbolized the division of body, heart, and spirit, each laid to rest in a space with its own sacred significance. Her body was buried in the imperial crypt beneath the Capuchin Church, where generations of Habsburg royalty had been entombed. There, among emperors and empresses, Maria Theresa joined the legacy she had so faithfully served. Her heart, believed to embody the soul and emotions of the deceased, was placed in the heart crypt within the Augustinian Church. Lastly, her entrails, according to tradition seen as the seat of will and instinct, were interred in the ducal crypt of St. Stephen's Cathedral. This unique ritual was not merely symbolic. It reflected a belief in the sacred fragmentation of royal identity, that an empress belonged not only to one place, but to many, to God, to her dynasty, and to her people. Through this gesture, Maria Theresa was honored not just as a woman, but as a living part of Habsburg history. Her triple burial ensured that, even in death, she remained woven into the spiritual and political fabric of Vienna, a city she had served with grace, devotion, and heart. Though her reign lasted less than 2 decades, Maria Theresa of Naples and Sicily left a legacy that endured far beyond the walls of the Habsburg. As the first Empress of Austria and the last Holy Roman Empress, she stood at the crossroads of 2 great dynastic chapters, bridging the collapse of one empire and the rise of another. Her influence, both personal and political, shaped the Habsburg court in ways both visible and invisible. She was remembered not only for her beauty and charm, but for her strength of character. In a world ruled largely by men, she found quiet ways to assert herself, advising her husband, protecting her children's futures, and holding court with grace and authority. Through the arts, she brought music and joy into the imperial household. Through diplomacy, she helped reinforce the ideals of monarchy during times of revolution and uncertainty. Her children carried her legacy across continents, one daughter becoming Empress of the French, another Empress of Brazil, her sons founding imperial lines that would stretch into the 20th century. Through them, her bloodline continued to influence the course of history. Even decades after her death, Vienna remembered her. Her portraits remained in palace halls, and the music she once sponsored continued to echo in chapels and concert salons. Though she never ruled as sovereign, her touch was felt in the quiet strength of every Habsburg court that followed. Maria Theresa died young, but she lived with purpose. She was not a reformer or a warrior, but she was a force. Her life remains a testament to a different kind of power, the power of presence, of tradition, and of enduring devotion to crown and country. What do you think about Infanta Maria Theresa of Portugal? Was she a loyal stepmother and court figure? A woman who upheld dynastic tradition with quiet grace, who stood by Franz Ferdinand in defiance of empire and carried the Habsburg legacy through war and exile? Or was she a forgotten empress in waiting, overshadowed by sorrow, sidelined by marriage, and remembered only as a background figure in a fading imperial world? And what about Maria Theresa of Naples and Sicily? Was she Austria's first empress in spirit and name, vibrant, passionate, and unafraid to shape court life through culture, conviction, and a mother's strength? Or was she a tragic royal, worn down by childbirth, court criticism, and the weight of traditions she could never fully escape? We would love to hear your thoughts. Were these two women silent threads in Europe's royal fabric, or the hidden hands that steadied it through war, loss, and change? Did their strength lie in their titles, or in their unwavering resilience behind palace walls? Let us know in the comments below. And if this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful tales from the past, stories of courage, choice, and the quiet force behind history. Thank you so much for watching.